welcome to Braveheart Conversations, where we learn the art of love through brave and compassionate conversations. I'm Jillian Aurora.
And I'm Marie Wallace.
And we are your hosts today.
Welcome to Braveheart Conversations. I am Jillian Aurora. This is my lovely co-host, Marie Wallace.
Hi, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And today we are excited to talk about building trust. And if you remember, this month is all about having healthy relationships. It's summertime. Kind of the theme of the season is growth, right? This is when everything is flourishing, or at least trying to. I mean, we have a lot of smoke and fires and heat right now. It's a little hellish outside, but
it's trying.
But there's also a lot of green. I don't know about you, but my yard is very green and happy.
Yeah, mine is too.
And so that is kind of the theme that I wanted to pull into Braveheart, that we do spend a lot of time talking about endings. We talk about navigating a lot of really tough relationship struggles. And so I really wanted to take some time this month to talk about how to pour into your relationships, how to build them, how to have healthy relationships. So last week we talked about discernment, which is really important, very key in deciding what relationships you will choose to have.
Yeah.
And then this week, we're talking about trust. And trust is, to me, a very foundational piece of relationships. You cannot have a healthy relationship without trust. And so how do we build it? How do we create trust with our partnerships? And a lot of this is even applicable to any other relationship in your life as well. It doesn't have to be with a partner necessarily, but it is absolutely necessary in partnership relationships. So let's dig in. Marie, is there anything you want to say about trust before I launch in?
No, launch. Go.
Okay.
I'll add when it's ready. But
All right.
but I do want to reiterate that it does work for all relationships. That's just a very foundational principle.
Okay. Yes, it is. So whenever I talk about trust, I lean on, I'm sure this is going to be a shocker for many of you, but Brené Brown has some great work on trust, and I frequently use her anatomy of trust when I'm talking in my personal relationships. I use it as a method of check-in with my own partner, and I talk about it in some of my other just important relationships in my life. And I also very much encourage people to use Brené Brown's anatomy of trust when they are doing a check-in with their own partner, or if they're trying to improve trust in a relationship.
Or trust with themselves.
Yes, this is also very true. You can use the same checklist for yourself. So I'm going to go through her anatomy of trust, which is actually called Braving. It's an acronym called Braving. So we'll go point by point, and then we also have a few other thoughts about trust that we want to share with you as well. So the first piece of Braving is boundaries.
Essential.
Shocker, right? Or so surprising.
Everything.
So boundaries, really, really important in building trust. Why? Because if I know that Marie is being honest with me about what she wants, about what her requirements are in a relationship, then I have a certain sense of security.
And safety. Yeah.
Right. If I, on the other hand, think that Marie is simply trying to gauge how I feel and then she's just accommodating, there's actually a lot of lack of trust in that, because her yeses aren't really her yeses and her nos aren't really her nos. So I have to be able to trust that Marie will be honest with me about what her needs are. So I hope you're seeing how this boundaries piece is actually beneficial for both people. And so when we both show up to the relationship and we're both clearly communicating what we need and want and what our requirements are, what is and isn't okay, then we are we are setting the foundation for trust. I trust that Marie will be honest with me. Mm-hmm. Marie trusts that I will be honest with her, right?
Imperative, yeah.
Do you want to add anything to the boundaries piece?
No, I'm ready for R.
Okay.
Only because I know this part for me. So reliability is for me the most important. To be reliable. It also means that I am true to my word, which goes very closely to the boundaries piece. And that honesty part, if I'm not honest with Jillian, then she can't even, I don't know, I feel that it's so imperative to be able to be my word, that we can negotiate and not even negotiate. We just can't have a relationship if we're not able to, if she's not able to rely on me. Mm-hmm. and to say that I am doing what I say I'm going to do. Reliability goes so much larger than that, but mostly it's being your word on things.
Yeah, and I think it goes hand in hand with boundaries as well. So reliability is simply doing what I say I'm going to do.
Which your yeses are really yeses and your no's are really no's. Yeah.
Right. And it also means, when I say a boundary, yeah. Right? When I say, this is something I remember back in the day when I was just learning to set boundaries. Other people didn't respect my boundaries, which pissed me off. But I also had to realize that I didn't respect my boundaries. So, for example, I can remember one of the, big boundaries that I set was I said, no, I won't buy your cigarettes anymore. And at the time, I was with a man who was heavily addicted to opiate painkillers. And the story was that if I bought him cigarettes, he would have less cravings. And I very naively believed this this need for cigarettes. And so, the good codependent that I was, of course, I bought him cigarettes, even though I was very resentful because it put me in a difficult position financially. I didn't really have the money to be doing that. But I bought him cigarettes, and I'd get angry about it. And so when I was angry with him and he had done something I didn't like, then I would set this boundary, right? I'd get angry and I'd say, I'm not buying you cigarettes anymore. And how dare you expect me to do that? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, and then fast forward to the next day when he's so sad and sorry, yeah. And he's craving really bad and all the things.
And you look into those sweet eyes.
Yeah. Then I betrayed my own boundaries, right? Just this once, okay. I can make an exception, right? This was the back and forth. So I didn't respect my boundaries, and therefore, why would he ever actually think they were believable? They weren't believable because I was willing to break them every time.
And there are no consequences. If you set a boundary that says if this happens and then this consequence will happen and that consequence never happens, again, they can't trust you because you're waffling. Mm-hmm. And you made the exceptions just like you did that time. Well, if she made an exception this time, she'll make another exception. There's a very great story about and we've used this on the podcast a couple times, where this cow broke through a fence. And where's that cow going to, when you rebuild the fence, where's that cow going to keep nudging again? It's in that spot that already broke because he knows it's a weak spot. And so, that's what happens when we're unreliable with our boundary. Then we make it very easy for other people to say, well, I know she'll make an exception for me.
Yep, exactly. So, learning to be reliable in your own word, to follow through with your own word, builds trust, even if it's really something that is unpleasant and uncomfortable. Sometimes we think about reliability as, I said I was going to take out the trash, and I'll take out the trash, which is absolutely, yes, very important. And it's important in the unpleasant things too, where I say, let's say my boundary is, for me, I don't allow substances in my house, right? And I don't like substances in close relationships. It's not something that I allow in my space. So if I say that and then I make exceptions to that, then I have betrayed my own word. I betrayed my own trust, and I'm no longer believable. That boundary isn't something that other person actually believes anymore. So,
which also brings up the word consistency a little bit, because if I have waffled in the past and then I'm not consistent, that also makes it not reliable. You're not reliable. So the more consistent I can be, the more trusting someone can be with me, because they go, oh, she really is holding that boundary. She really does mean this. So consistency is a big part of that.
Yep. Yeah, and I think reliability, even though it can seem like such a small thing, it is one of the biggest trust breakers or trust builders I've ever had in my relationships. If I know that I can trust a partner or a friend or my mom or whoever the person is, that they say they're going to be there, they say that they're going to help out with whatever task, or they're going to remember XYZ, and I can trust that they're going to set the alarm or the reminder, or they're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that their word is kept. That's so much of a trust builder for me. That's an amazing, very small. It can seem so small, right? I'm going to feed the dog. Small task, but to know that every single time it's going to be done, if they say it's going to be done, that's an incredible trust builder.
And a relief, right? That I can turn that over to someone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And those people are actually few and far between, even though it seems like it's simple, right? Those seem like such small things, but in reality, to have just a few people that are that reliable, it is those small things that build trust.
The small things are the big things.
It is. Yep. And that goes back to the consistency, right? It's the small things over and over. And Brene Brown puts it like, I love her analogy of a marble jar.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard that? Yeah. So, trust is one little marble at a time. And then you fill up this marble jar. And there are things that you take out a marble, right? And that's to me, a very good concept of, who I can trust and who I can't. Who has the full marble jar?
Full marble jar.
Yeah. It's all those little small moments.
We use that in teaching.
I think it was a teacher's analogy. So the next
accountability.
one is accountability. Yep. So accountability means that when I make a mistake, when I fuck up, I own it, right? And I say I was wrong, and I forgot, or I maybe even intentionally I did something that hurt you, and I make amends for it. This is a huge trust builder as well. We have all been in the position where we have informed someone that we feel very hurt about something and gotten defensiveness, right? Or blame or dismissal. And that can feel really awful, right? Well, I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't have, or, it's not really a big deal anyway. Those things can really damage trust. So knowing that when something you've done has hurt someone else, to be able to take accountability for your part. Now, this doesn't mean taking accountability for something that isn't your part, which
or the entire relationship.
Or the entire relationship, yes. But when you know that you have participated in something that has mistakenly or intentionally hurt someone, that you own up to it and you make amends. You do something to make it right. That's a huge contributor to relationship trust. Do you want to add anything to that?
But it goes the other way too. I hold them accountable as well. If we made an agreement to something and they fell through, then I have to have that courageous conversation and hold them accountable as well. So accountability for myself as well as whomever I'm in relationship.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, accountability is love. It really is. So if you have agreed on something in a relationship, or if someone has hurt you, right? It is important to be honest about how that has impacted you and to have that conversation. And I have found these conversations to be very telling, because if the response is dismissal or blaming or whatever, other something else,
they're not in relationship with you.
Yeah.
They're in relationship with themselves.
Yeah, or they're just not invested.
And they're not invested in the relationship.
And the priority for the relationship isn't really there. And that can be very telling. That can be a hard set of true colors to see and be honest about, but they are there. Okay, next one is V, vault. And vault means that I hold in not secrecy, but in confidence. I hold in confidence what you have shared with me. And one point that Brene Brown makes that I think is very, very important is that we can also see the way that other people, so if I'm in relationship with Marie and Marie is gossiping about other people, then that erodes trust. Because then I have really no faith that she's not going to do the same thing to me. So vault is really the principle that whoever has shared things with me in confidence, that I don't share them.
Important, yeah. Super important.
Very important. And this is, I've seen this impact relationships where, a spouse shares something with parents or a mutual friend or something that. And it can certainly damage a relationship. I do want to talk about a caveat here. So I've spoken before about secrecy and how damaging it can be. And this particular piece, this vault piece, can be weaponized in a way that is very destructive. So I do want to take a moment to call out, if you are being hurt at home, if you have verbal abuse, or you're being cheated on, or you are
physically
taken advantage of financially or in some other way, if there's something going on at home and someone, your partner or whoever is involved in the relationship is saying, well, you owe me this loyalty and you owe me this secrecy, you owe them nothing. And so vault is something I'm very careful about how we talk about, because it is important to remain confidential. I'm not just going to blurt out everything that is, within a relationship. I'm going to talk to Marie about something that's going on, just like all these other steps we've already talked about, right? I'm going to have boundaries with Marie. I'm going to be consistent and reliable in my boundaries. I'm going to, hold myself accountable and her accountable. So if we've followed all these steps, and let's say I've talked to Marie and I've said, Marie, you really hurt me because, you stole $100 out of my purse. Okay.
I love these scenarios.
I know. I don't even know where they come from. You're just an easy.
I know. It's good.
Easy example. So Marie stole $100 from my purse and it really hurt my feelings. Okay, so if I've had this conversation now with Marie and Marie has denied it and she, whatever, and it doesn't matter, and you owed it to me anyway.
Or discounted what you said.
Whatever, yeah. So at that point, I owe her no secrecy. In order to hold her accountable, that may require me going to the authorities. That may require me taking some steps that are not confidential. And so I just want to make sure that that's really clear. That vault does not mean that no matter what, you keep a secret.
Yeah.
It means if Marie and I are having a personal conflict and we're in the middle of resolving it, I don't need to blab to the rest of the world that Marie stole $100 from me.
Exactly.
So I hope that
Yeah, I think that was a very good point, because I can see how tricky it would be if someone had made that promise and their loyalty to their promise was secret, vault. Secrecy is way different than confidentiality.
Yeah. And
Secrecy
there are times
means
to
they're
break it.
hiding something that is harmful.
Yeah.
In any way, physically, emotionally, sexually, whatever the abuse is, mentally. If it's a harmful, abusive thing, then that is not something to keep a secret.
And this was something that I feel was very weaponized in me. Not only by someone else, but by me.
Yeah.
So I was so, I felt so strongly about confidentiality. Part of that was my own background in the mental health field, right? You keep a secret no matter what. You don't share information. And that really contributed to me living a double life in many ways, where I had some pretty awful things going on at home, and nobody really knew about it because I was really good at keeping the vault.
I was really good at it.
So I just want to make sure that caveat is clear. There is a line between being trustworthy and keeping things in confidence that you're working out, and things that really should not be kept secret.
You feel like you're betraying them.
Yes.
When that happens, and you feel this immense guilt for betraying them, and in actuality, when we hold that confident, we're saying it's okay for them to have bad behavior. They don't ever have to be responsible for their own actions. So no consequences would be, wouldn't we all like a consequence-free life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think if you're practicing all of these steps synonymously at the same time, it works. But if you're just taking vault out of context and nothing else is working, then it's probably not a great time to practice that piece.
So we're on that.
So yeah, I as integrity, and we all need to bring integrity to the table. Integrity means I choose to do what is right, even when it could be easier, faster, funner. That's not a word, is it?
Funner. It is. It's a great word. It's also synonymous with being my word, right? Just that honesty and integrity we talked about when we were talking about boundaries. So.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes we will be confronted with decisions where something could appear faster, easier, and it's hard to do the right thing. So having the integrity to do the right thing. And when we watch our partner or other people do the right thing in the face of something that could be easier another way, that builds so much trust.
It does.
If I see Marie do the right thing, maybe she's been really mistreated by a friend or an employee, or somebody has done her wrong, and I see her walk with integrity, and she doesn't get down in the mud.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean she doesn't hold people accountable, but if I see that builds trust in me, because then I'm like, wow, Maria's this amazing person, and I can trust that she will deal with me in the same way. Mm-hmm. So watching each other operate out of integrity is a huge trust builder.
Lots of marbles for that.
Totally, yeah. And what's interesting too to remember is this isn't necessarily between each other.
Right.
This is how we're acting as people.
Observing them in other relationships. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. So
forgot what N is.
Non-judgment. So non-judgment is that I don't judge my partner for asking for help. This can be...
That's a toughie sometimes.
It can be really tough. So I know I struggle with asking for help. There's a lot of old wounds there. And so asking for help can be a challenge. So knowing that I have a safe partner or a safe friendship to ask for help and say, I'm really overwhelmed here and I'm buried and I need some help, and can you do this or that? That takes a lot of courage to say that.
Yeah. Or
for example, my partner and I will sit down and divide up all of the chores or the responsibilities of the house. And so there might be a week or two or whatever where one of us has a lot on our plate, and we might say, hey, I'm really dying here. Do you mind taking a few extra responsibilities? that's hard. It takes some guts to do that. So, but those are the certain cases where that builds a lot of trust, to be able to say, I need help, and to know that they're not going to judge you for it.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add on that one?
Well, that non-judgment also frees me more. And again, with consistency, the more that I ask, and I do feel I'm asking and I'm not going to be judged, it makes it easier and easier. It's a very freeing feeling to begin to ask for, things that you really want and need.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. The last one is G, which is generous assumptions. And that is that I assume the best of the other person. And I know that I can get totally in my head about this one. This can be entirely based on my mood or my hormones. I can do my share of projection and assumption of motives. And so this is a really important principle to remember, that if something didn't get done, or Marie, it appears she wasn't reliable, she didn't follow her word, instead of assuming that, to actually say, what happened?
yeah.
You were 10 minutes late. Maria's never late, but I could make an assumption. I could make a negative assumption, or I could ask. I could be curious, and you might say, "Oh, well, there was construction, and I sat for 15 minutes or whatever." So there's a lot of times where we have the opportunity to make an assumption or a judgment, or we get to be open-minded and curious and say, "Oh, what was that about?" Something that may appear negative, something that may appear damning, may have a very good explanation or reason that they were not able to be in the space that you thought that they were. I will say again, caveat here, if your intuition is very clear that something is amiss, you are right. So,
or at least investigate it. Most of the time,
I think very
intuition
often
is very right.
We try to prove our intuition wrong, and we demand facts, when sometimes my intuition knew years before I finally allowed myself to be honest about what was happening. And sometimes requiring facts actually held me back when I knew that there was something wrong.
Agreed.
I knew that there was disconnection, or I knew that there was something that was just not quite right. I knew the trust wasn't there, right? It's not that hard to know that the trust isn't there.
I just recall a personal example of mine was I had a suspicion that one of my partners was cheating on me, and I even saw him in a car with someone, and I discounted it, and I go, oh, but he's just probably really taking her home, or I really knew, but I discounted it, and I pushed it aside, and there were many examples like that were right in my face, and I still would put it aside. So that I'm glad that you brought up that that's a caveat in there, because yes. And I also wanted to speak about generous assumptions. Also, for me, kind of goes in hand, is me enjoying all the best parts of my husband, and never and bringing up anything that I have a question about with him is great. And then other people can trust me, because I can go anywhere and know that he's not talking bad about me or bringing things up that he has secretly been holding against me because he doesn't feel confident to talk about it with me. I can just with 100% confidence say, I trust that what he's saying about me to other people is really how he feels about me, and that if he has a problem with me, that he's going to bring it up with me. And so I wanted to bring that up. It goes kind of a little bit with the vault part too, because he's doing that generous assumption with everyone, right? And which, like she said, it's all intertwined, because I see the generous assumptions he makes with other people. That puts more marbles in their jar, because I know when he's making these generous assumptions about others, he's doing that for me as well. So I just wanted to bring that up. It's such a beautiful, powerful tool when used appropriately.
Such a great point. Another thing that I really think about too when I think about generous assumptions is there's a both and here. There's something that is simultaneously true, and that is I can believe someone is doing the best that they can, which is my generous assumption.
That's a good one.
And I can still see their true colors. So I can still see that someone is doing the best that they can and that they're untrustworthy. I can still see that someone's doing the best that they can and they're unreliable. These things can be simultaneously true. I can hold compassion and I can hold honesty at the same time. And in the past, I have used the principle of generous assumptions to actually avoid the truth and to actually avoid seeing someone's true colors for what they actually were. So I just want to make that point that sometimes we use these principles in a way that is actually damaging to us instead of allowing them to be true at their heart and still acknowledge other truths. So I can see always I can find where someone is doing the best that they can. And I can still say the best that you can is dangerous for me in this particular way, and it's unacceptable for me to share space with you, or I need to set limits in this other way because I'm being honest that they're not a trustworthy person.
Well, I wanted to add that we have a friend named Misty that talks about this, because sometimes I get asked, how can you have compassion? And it is understanding that that person may at this point not have either the will or the skill to deal with what I'm asking of them. So I can be generous with them and I can be compassionate with them because I understand that that's not something that they're able to, but that's not saying you have a free pass or that I'm going to let it go. It just means I understand that this is something that may not be in your wheelhouse right now, but it doesn't mean I have to either tolerate it or accept it as, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Because sometimes people ask, like, how can you have compassion for someone who did all of this? And sometimes it's really hard, I'm not going to lie, but it always goes back to they're still, a human being, and we all make mistakes. It just doesn't mean that I have to hold them.
Yeah, nobody's truly a monster. Everybody has their good sides too. So I know this has been a long topic, and I knew we were going to struggle with getting through all of it, but we did them. We did. We got through all the braving.
Recap.
The only thing that I really wanted to make sure was clear before we wrap up, aside from braving, is the fact that trust is earned and that it is not owed. As you see, going through all of the braving pieces, it's a two-way street here, right? There's two people that are very active. Two people are being honest about their boundaries. Two people are following through with their word. They're being reliable. Two people are being accountable and making amends when they have their fuck ups, because we all have them. Two people are, keeping confidentiality in each other. Two people have integrity. Two people have non-judgment for asking for help. Two people have generous assumptions of each other. Relationships are a two-way street. And what I often see in women who come to work with me is that they have so much shame and guilt around this fear that they haven't done enough, and that why can't I trust him? Why can't I rebuild this relationship? Why can't I rebuild trust? Well, because it's a two-way street. And if the other person isn't invested and isn't engaged in the relationship, you cannot rebuild it all yourself. You can never be healthy enough to make a relationship healthy, because a relationship requires two healthy people. So I just want to
That
make
sounds
sure
like a quotable.
that
You can never be healthy enough.
You can't. You cannot be healthy enough.
For
I
both of
tried.
you.
I
Yeah.
tried. I know there's a ton of women out there who are also
I've tried,
trying
yeah.
to be healthy enough to make the other person healthy, and that isn't the way it works. The other person has to want to be healthy on their own.
And not as you're leaving out the door.
Right. I think that there's also a misconception often that we owe people our trust.
Yeah.
And you don't, and actually this creates a lot of, like we talked about discernment last week, right? And sometimes we throw our discernment out the door because we think we owe someone our trust instead of realizing that trust is earned. Trust is something that is built over time and consistency and reliability and all the things that we just talked about in braving, right? Those are all actions. They're all things that we can see. They're true colors in a person, that we can see their behavior. We can see our behavior, right? We can tell if someone is trustworthy or not. It's not a mystery. It's something that is actually pretty damn clear if they're trustworthy or not. And so when I am asking, there's a hummingbird right out the window. I have a little visitor. Sorry, squirrel, hummingbird.
There it is. It's so small.
I know. We have a lot this time of year. Anyway, yeah, trust is earned. So if you have someone demanding your trust, how dare you not trust me? Then you have someone that is not interested in earning your trust, and that's a problem. Yeah. If I demand that Marie trust me and I am not willing to do the work to actually earn her trust, that's a problem. That's something that is actually a huge red flag that I'm not trustworthy if I'm not willing to take the time to show her that I'm worthy of her trust. So Marie, is there any final thoughts about trust that you wanted to share?
We covered a lot.
We did.
I think it's a very good conversation.
This is a lot of information. I know we went a little long, but I feel like we were trucking
Spot
through.
on. It was good. It was really good stuff. I get this asked a lot, so I'm glad that we covered it.
Me too. Great topic. Okay, let me pull up our topic for next week. I remember pulling it up last week. Commitment? I want to say we're talking about commitment. Let's see if I'm right.
Sounds like a good next step.
All right, 95 is understanding healthy commitments.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So next week, that's going to be great. We're going to talk about loyalty a bit. And commitments, because
we told you we would talk about loyalty.
Yeah, last week that came up. So yes, this coming week we're going to be talking about commitments. What are healthy ones and not so healthy commitments? Because sometimes we're making promises that are not very honoring. So I'm excited to talk about that and really bringing in a new perspective about commitments and how we can make the most honorable commitments both for ourselves and our partners. All right, in wrapping up, I just want to remind everyone that we are live every week. You can find all of our previous episodes in our group, Braveheart Conversations. You can follow us there and ask any of your questions and follow the discussions. You can also email either of us with your questions or comments, or if you have a topic you'd like us to discuss. You can email me at defytheaverage@gmail.com or Marie
at mariesgold.com. Yeah, we love that.
Absolutely, we would love to hear from you. And anything else, Brandy?
We have a retreat coming up.
Yes, we do have a retreat coming up. If you would like more information about the Warrior Goddess Retreat, that is coming up in September in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which if you are unfamiliar with that area, it is divine. It is like heaven, and it is going to be just gorgeous this fall. So if you have not checked it out yet, please go to my website, jillianaurora.com, and you can click on Signature Programs and the Warrior Goddess course. The retreat.
And the course. Yeah.
And the course, there's both. But the retreat is happening in September. It is for women who have done a lot of the recovery work around codependency, but still have a little bit of struggle around the area of being a strong woman. Can I be a strong woman and still be feminine? And how does that work? And so I'm excited to talk about some of the history of why we have felt that being strong women is forbidden. And we're going to really talk about unleashing that feminine divine and owning our feminine authority. So very excited about that. Check it out if it sounds like it would be something that would resonate with you. And with that, I'm going to let you all go, and I will see you guys next week. I hope you stay cool out there and stay out of that heat, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.